Hello and welcome to Fanalytics. Today we'll be doing a weekend wrap up of Gameweek 15. I'm joined by my handsome co-host Matt, and this has been another good week in the Premier League. Never a really dull moment. Some big games: Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool, Spurs. Just by looking at it, but no other games really disappointed.
No, it's a good week. A very generous intro there as well, Sean. Thanks for that. But yeah, couple of absolutely massive games towards the top of the table, and couple of shocks in there as well.
Mhm. Let's waste no time. Let's go to Spurs and Liverpool first. Obviously, Liverpool are not doing what they normally do. Normally they're head to head with City, and Spurs are where they are, but performance didn't say otherwise. But this game kind of Liverpool kind of continue their progress. One more step in the right direction.
Yeah, and I think these are the kind of games that I think Liverpool kind of like these games at the moment. I
Mm-hmm.
think the games where they're kind of expected to win, expected to dominate the game, they're sort of they're unsure of themselves and they're still creating a lot of chances, but they just seem like a team that's a bit down on confidence. So when you go away from home to another top six team, it's going to be a difficult day. I think those are the kind of games they seem to be thriving on at the moment, where they could just counter quickly
Mm-hmm.
against some of the, teams that like to attack them as well.
Yeah, Salah's increasing his goal tally. It's been an underperforming season, but Salah's not numbers wise still thereabouts near top ranks
I think
for.
it's, yeah, I think it's just the bar has been set so
Mm.
high from him that anything less than that we think is a disappointing season. But he's quietly, he is scoring goals, just not with his previous regularity.
Yeah, true. But let's talk about Spurs today. Obviously disappointing with their loss, but they're getting famous for their slow starts this season. Out of 7 of 20 games, they scored first, and out of those 7 games, they only scored in 3 games. They only scored after the opponent scored. And you can see in here in the first half table, second half table in the Premier League, they're second in the second half table, quite with City. In the first half table, they're fifth with a game in hand over Man United and Brighton. I'm not sure because Conte's teams are normally really aggressive from the start, and the players they have, you think they'd be more physically up for it at least.
Yeah, it's very odd, and I mean, we spoke about this exact thing last week, how it's not sustainable.
Hmm.
Long, you cannot keep going behind, and since that recording, they went behind in the Champions League as well. They go behind in this game, and there's never a good time to go 1 or 2 nil down. But
Yeah,
against a team like Liverpool, I know they're struggling, but it's just not a situation you want to be in. And I think it's 4 Premier League games in a row now that they've gone 2 nil down.
yeah, I think so. Yeah,
I mean that, and look, there's some good teams in there. Don't get me wrong, but they have to figure out a way of getting going quicker. I don't understand it.
no, it seems it takes them so long. Like even this Liverpool match, Liverpool quietly kind of in control, but even in the second half, Spurs were all over them. They hit the bar, they hit the post with Perisic. They had loads of chances at the end, and even I think the XG battle shows that Spurs had more the better chances in the overall picture. And it just seems like if you perform like this in the second half, do it in the first half. And it's easy to
Yeah,
say, but
and it's funny because you watch the first half, they played really badly, didn't really create any. I think Perisic did hit the post from that header,
yeah.
but that was well against the run of play. That came out
Mm.
of nowhere, really. And then you see at the start of the second half, just the positions they take up. Suddenly, Bentancur's just a bit further forwards. The defense is pushed a lot higher, and you're like, you know, be braver from the start of the game.
Mm.
I know it's Liverpool, and I know you got guys like Salah that can destroy you in behind, and Nunes had a great time running
Yeah.
at Spurs defenders in this game. But I think they've got to be braver from the start of games because you know they've shown in the second half they do. They just push forward because they have to,
Mm.
and it's just night and day. The performances it's so much better in the second half.
I think last week we adhered to Kulusevski's and his injury and their kind of dip in performance. And he came on 68th minute and got an assist in the 69th minute.
Yeah.
He injects that penetration to the team, that kind of link from the midfield and forward. There's probably no one in that team. I know they tried to make Son do it sometimes, but I'm trying to think of other players in the team. Maybe Brian Gill could come in to that role, but there's not really anyone that can connect midfield and the attack.
Nah, I mean Brian Hill's looked lively in the Champions League games that he's played in, but I don't think he has Conte's full trust from the start. He can't get a start to save his life, even with Spurs. Spurs have resorted to playing Perisic up front in this game. Obviously with Kulusevski coming back, that should be negated somewhat now. But the way Kulusevski, I do love watching Kulusevski. Every time he gets the ball, he's very direct. He moves towards the goal. Part of that is being an inverted winger on the right hand side, left footed. Everything he does is going to come inwards, towards that goal. But he drives forward with the ball really well, and he whips some lovely balls into the box that just are begging for someone to get on the end of it. And I think him coming back is big for Spurs. They've really missed him, especially with Son struggling the way he has injured at the moment, obviously. But yeah, they need him back.
Yeah, it'd be good to see him back. And I guess we could talk about Spurs against the Big Six.
Yeah, because last week I showed that Tottenham have dropped points here and there, but they've only dropped points to big sides. But it's every time they play top teams, they are struggling in these games. 0.3 points per game is not good. Not good at all. I think it's 1 point from 4 games.
Yep.
Against top 6 sides. 1 goal per game, 2.3 goals against. I mean, they qualified. They got top 4 last season. And there was big ambition heading into this season that
money spent
that they
too.
could. Yeah, they spent a lot of money, and you kind of go back to all that money that they spent because Conte's coming out again doing his usual. We need big investment next transfer window. Guy's always looking for big investment. You do wonder. Well, you did have big investment over the summer, and now looking back on it, I mean, none of those guys can get starts. Charleston for a few games because of injuries, but he's not really, staked a claim for a place. He cost 50 million. Basuma has been slightly underwhelming, really.
Yeah, it's normally been Højbjerg and Bentancur anyway.
Yeah, and Perisic has had his moments. I do like Perisic in general, but how many of those signings have really just improved the team? You look at when Kulusevski and Bentancur came in last January.
Yeah,
they've been brilliant, and they're still 2 of Tottenham's most important players, I'd say. Really, obviously, Kane's in there as well, but it's they don't look like a team that can challenge at the very top right now.
Performance doesn't really say otherwise either.
No, because and that's the secondary point. Okay, results haven't been great. You can't even fall back on the performances. You're right. So it is a little bit of a concern, and it's always concerning because Conte always reverts to we need big investment, and how many more transfer windows will it take?
Speaking of teams that have been transformed under new managers, Arsenal, Matt, still top of the league. Can you believe your eyes? Facing Chelsea, like never easy to go in Stamford Bridge. Even though I guess Potter right now is, not, he's still adjusting to terms. But Arsenal were dominant this game.
Yeah, and I think that's 3 in a row at Stamford Bridge for Arsenal.
Yeah, first time any other team has done it, I think.
Oh, there you go. I mean, it just feels really good for Arsenal at the moment, and when you watch the game, Arsenal were in control of this game for 90 minutes. Chelsea had very little answer to what Arsenal were doing. And every performance like this that Arsenal put in is just another step closer to, I think Arteta finally has admitted that Arsenal are title contenders. I'm still wary of officially saying that. I'm still just top four's great, guys. They feel like a very young team. I do think when all's said and done, I think Man City will just have way too much experience.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, to go to Stamford Bridge and completely control Chelsea the way they did is really, really impressive.
Yeah, especially remember that one chance Jesus had. I think, was it the header or was it the one that you dropped in the box? But it was a beautiful passage of play where you passed out the box from your own box and you were just straight up there. I was like, wow, this is a proper team.
Yeah, that was one thing that we did really well in this game. We and for Chelsea fans, really concerning how easy Arsenal played through them. They played straight through the middle of that Chelsea team at times, and it's just a sign that they're still, I think, figuring things out on their end. Potter's got a lot, I think, to figure out.
Yeah. But let's talk about Arsenal in general. Obviously, we've seen them beat small teams, but how are they doing against big teams?
Yeah, I think similar to the Tottenham case study that we looked at with Arsenal. It's the polar opposite. 2.3 points per game, 2 goals per game, 1.5 against. It was always the big. It's been Arsenal's problem for like the last 10 years, really.
Yeah.
Where even a couple of years where they kind of were in contention for titles or there or thereabouts. I think 2014 there was that month where got spanked at Anfield, got spanked at Stamford Bridge. We got beat badly at the Etihad that season as well. It's always been, a problem.
Mm-hmm. This is
for
Arsenal,
Arsenal.
soft but play really well.
Yeah,
football,
the soft sort of nature, the soft underbelly, which is definitely not the case when you watch Arsenal now. There's a real toughness to the way they play. There's a mental toughness. We've seen that the way they respond to conceding goals this season. We've mentioned that before, but also just they're very physical out there on the pitch.
Mm-hmm.
They love a battle. I know Arteta loves his duels. And the players get stuck into them. And when you see guys, it's a big team now. Saliba, Gabriel, Partey, even Xhaka. I mean, Xhaka loves
he loves a scrap.
He loves a scrap as well, and he had a nice one in the final minutes of this game. But it's this is what I think is really giving Arsenal fans confidence. It's these performances against big teams. It's not just one-offs, because last season we had that great performance against Man City and lost the game at the Emirates. And yes, it felt great to finally put in a good performance, but it was still like, well, a bit of a weakness, I think. We showed a lot of fragility in that game, the way we kind of imploded on ourselves in the space of 5 minutes. But that's not happening this season, They're going to places like Stamford Bridge and the way they beat Liverpool as well at the Emirates. It's just really complete performances from 0 to 90.
Apart from United, but we'll forget about that.
No, I mean, and to be fair, even I think I said it at the time. If you asked, Arsenal how they wanted that game to go in the week leading up to that game,
yeah, it's true.
How it played out, they would have wanted. They just they didn't take their chances, and Manchester United absolutely creamed them on the counter attack that day.
Speaking of not taking your chances, Jesus, I swear every week, I think he's leading the charts with big chances the last 6 weeks. He got 6 big chances. But apart from that, I think we've known that when he signed from City, that he's not a clinical striker. But what he's given Arsenal is something that can't be really, understated. He's look at the metrics here in percentiles against other forwards in the top 5 leagues. 94, 95 percentile, every progressive passes, shots, assists. And the way he plays is phenomenal as a striker. We never really saw it at City, like able to hold his back against these big defenders, control a 40-yard pass by Ramsdale, pick it up, drive at people. Almost a complete forward, apart from maybe clinicality. I think that's the difference compared to like
Yeah,
elite forwards. But what he
yeah,
brings,
and I think he always showed that at City, where he can be very streaky.
yeah,
He will go through those spells where he scores like 5 in the space of 3 games. He will absolutely do that for you, but he will go on these slightly lean spells. But I think that stuff that you were talking about before is the most important, and goes back to what I was talking about with the toughness of this Arsenal team. I've for a striker who's only what 5'10",
yeah, 5'9",
5'10", 5'10" max, he gets into it with centre backs. It's very physical, and he more often than not keeps hold of the ball.
Yeah,
He's very
definitely.
skillful as well. He's got the technicality to match the physicality, and he's that complete forward. You can tell that the way that Arsenal play, because it's why Lacazette was favoured over Aubameyang last season in the end, because even though Lacazette really struggled even more than Jesus in the final third at times,
Yeah,
he absolutely was able to provide that link-up play, that hold-up play, bringing other players in, and that fluidity. I think the fluidity is really important with Jesus. Him
especially
and
when he
Martinelli.
he goes to the left wing. I was about to say,
Yeah,
and he can cut in and dribble just like a left winger would, or in front.
yeah, and it's something that, especially when Nketiah's on the pitch as well, we often bring Nketiah on the left wing, and they'll interchange. And that even Nketiah now, he's a lot more physical. When he first came into the side, he could get bullied a little bit, but he's brought a mentality as well, Gabriel Jesus, to this Arsenal team, that winning mentality from City. I don't think that can be understated.
Yeah, even like I just want to point out the defensive stats: tackles, interception, blocks, still high percentiles. And when you're defending from the front, we talk about defensive players, but I think you have to defend as a team now these days. Start from the front, starting from Jesus. He puts that pressure on. He sets the kind of notion of the whole team to go for it.
Absolutely, and you see it with Arsenal. They are so aggressive in their press now. I really love watching Arsenal, because they're almost lining players up on the 18-yard box, daring teams to try and play out. And I think Gabriel Jesus is a big part of that.
From one giant to another, maybe a fallen giant, but this is a tough watch to follow. Aston Villa 3, Man United 1. Really not really sure about this game, to be fair. When I was watching it, Bailey's goal came out of nowhere in terms of, and then Digney scored that amazing free kick. What can you do? And then we kind of got back into it, but it's the old question of like us being able to break down teams. We're not there yet. We're still in that transition for this team. I think players who we really missed is Fernandez. We played Donny van der Beek, and there was a time where he could play Rashford, and then Rashford made 2 runs. He came back onside, came back offside, and Van der Beek just couldn't release it. I know he hasn't had much great game time, but you picture Fernandez in a role, he'd be picking
Yeah.
Rashford up, and that could have given a big chance. And some of these numbers here: 52 shot creator actions, 2.5 XA, 29 key passes. He's not had his best season, but he's still up there with the most elites in the Premier League, 5th, 7th, 8th. And
I personally, I think this is some of his best work. I think there were times I think there was times a couple of years ago where it felt like you were too reliant on him, grabbing goals. He was literally your talisman.
Yeah.
Now I think there is a bit more of a
structure.
Unity to this team as well. There's a bit more of, everyone's kind of chipping in, and he's able to just settle into this role. Top tens across the board for those 3 stats you've mentioned there. That's what you want from him, I think.
Yeah, it's where he excels, and what I'm really looking forward to is I know you expect that Portuguese link between him and Ronaldo, but I have not seen it in these matches. But when you see Martial play or some kind of forward that likes link play, like we just talked about Jesus, I think we'll get really the best out of him, and that's
Yeah,
what I'm looking forward
and
to.
I'm really sick of Cristiano Ronaldo at this point. I don't know how United fans feel, but even Eric Ten Hag mentioned after the game that he couldn't understand why the team was attempting so many of these crosses
Yeah.
into the box looking for Ronaldo, and spoken about it before how it just United seem to attack in very, very different ways when Ronaldo's on the pitch, and I think it's to their detriment because, like we were just saying there, when he's not on the pitch, there's been much more of a shared sort of workload. Rashford's really improving this season. When Martial's been on the pitch, he's been effective. Anthony's had a really good start to his United career.
Hmm.
Eriksen's been fantastic as well. It's a real team, and the way they attack, it comes from both sides. They can still whip good balls into the box, but they can play through you as well. And um, I think it was noticeable, very noticeable in this game that a few of those key players who have played a big part so far this season weren't there.
Yeah, I completely agree. It's like, I'm done with the Ronaldo hype. He's just not the same player. He's got a big personality. There's no doubt about it because you can see. I think if you watched the game versus Sheriff, every player was trying to get Ronaldo to score because he was on a goal drought.
Oh, I mean
That was
uh,
annoying. Just
it
score.
was genuinely one of the funniest things I've ever seen. Just watching Ronaldo be teed up about 7 or 8 times, either
That's
by himself or a teammate. I mean, and they were passing to him, and the word I was just like, "Why are you not shooting yourself?
mhm.
That's on for you." But no, fine, Cristiano. He's a bit upset at the moment. I mean, come on,
Yeah,
man.
I don't understand. If he makes a move in January, I think it'd be best for us, be best for him. I don't want him to
Yeah,
tarnish his legacy at United. You know, it's understandable. He's 37. He's in the Premier League. You can see, he doesn't have that in his game. I think he'd be better in a league where or a team at least that's more accomplished and he can just kind of get the last chances. But we need a full team. We need a Jesus. We need someone that's going to complete our forward line because it's a big weak link.
absolutely, and it's a cultural rebrand that you're trying to instill as well.
Hmm.
And I think I will say I think Ten Hag is managing the situation pretty unbelievably because it's a very difficult situation, and I compare it to Arteta and Özil, and I think Arteta was able to be a lot braver with that situation because I think he had a lot of rope
Hmm.
from the Arsenal ownership. I think he had been given a lot of time to implement his full vision, which is reaping rewards. Now, I'm not sure that Ten Hag has been given those assurances, so he's trying to manage around this, and he's had much more awkward situations with Ronaldo than we have with Özil, with Ronaldo refusing to come on, and
Yeah.
he's got his mate Roy Keane constantly piping up for him, but he's managed to reintegrate him in the squad without too much issue. It doesn't seem to be causing this massive divide within the dressing room, and I think Ten Hag does deserve a lot of credit for that.
Yeah. From one manager to another. Who's back? Good evening.
Good evening. He had a hard time in his first spell in England, Unai Emery.
Yeah.
But I wanted to pick out Jacob Ramsey. Firstly, because of his performance, goal, assist, also 7 tackles and interceptions, which you love to see from a central midfielder, especially one that's more known for his attacking kind of play.
Yeah.
Just to see that defensive work rate as well, that's really, really encouraging. He also got an own goal,
Yeah.
unfortunately for him, so it was an all-action performance. But the reason I pointed him out or singled him out is I think he's going to be great under Emery. I think I think of when Emery was at Arsenal, a player who really blossomed and developed was Joe Willock. And if you're talking skill sets, Jacob Ramsey and Joe Willock have a very, very similar skill set. Ball
Very true.
carriers, they love to drive into the box, get on the end of things, almost shadow strikers at times. Um, but Emery really got the best out of Joe Willock. Joe Willock was a player with confidence at Arsenal when he played there. Emery doesn't have that, doesn't instill that real tactical discipline. He doesn't. It's more free flowing, organic, kind of style in attack on the counter attack and stuff like that. He obviously values a bit of defensive solidity
Yeah,
as
he's
well,
very
but
pragmatic, I guess.
yeah, and I think this team is going to suit him, and I think Jacob Ramsey's gonna be really really good under him.
Yeah, I actually completely agree. I never really thought about the Willock, but then I'm thinking about his other team in Seville. And Zonzi is a kind of similar player, kind of blossom under Emery. So definitely, yeah, definitely want to watch out for. So a team that isn't blossoming, Wolves. Wolves 2, Brighton 3. Wolves, though, scored 2 goals. That's why we brought them up this week. It's a rare occurrence.
Yeah, what have they doubled their tally?
Well, almost. As we look at these last matches, this is the first time they scored more than 1 goal. I think it goes all the way back to when they faced Chelsea last season. They scored a goal per game since Bruno Lage has been sacked, though. Pretty good. Apart from the game against Chelsea and Leicester City, they've had more than XG than 1. So it has improved. They're definitely scoring. They're a bit more kind of free flowing. They're getting their attackers in the right position. You can see that Leicester City game, 2.1. They didn't score none.
Yeah, a bit of a freak one that, but yeah. I mean, they needed this sort of spark going forwards, and I think that might explain maybe the delay with just bringing in the new manager. They've kind of waited a little while. I think they just wanted a caretaker manager, who could just go in there and just sort of just get them hoping for that new bounce, that manager bounce that you sometimes get with caretakers, but yeah, just hoping just to play with a bit more freedom and positivity. And to be fair, they have. The results don't really show it.
Yeah.
And I just think that's a symptom of just such a bad run that they've been on, dating back to the end of last season. It's not anything new. That's really why Bruno Lage was dispatched when he was, right?
Yep. And it'd be interesting to see who they get, probably during the World Cup.
Oh, so it's Lopetegui, isn't it?
Oh, is it? Oh, damn.
Yeah, it's been announced. I think it was earlier this week or late last week. He wasn't not in time for this game, but yeah, that's an interesting one.
And what next few games he has?
Yeah, and I was going to say his intro is large to Bruno Lage to say the least. It's a really difficult situation or difficult time, I think, to come in. You've got one game before the World Cup. That's Arsenal at home, so you're not going to learn anything about your team in that game. If you can look, you might get a result, but in terms of performance and stuff, you're not going to learn anything about your side really from a difficult game against Arsenal. And then you've got a World Cup, and Wolves will have a bunch of players playing for Portugal at the World Cup. So he doesn't. It's not like he can spend those weeks really getting to know his team. He can figure out some of that team, but there's always going to be that kind of lack of unity, if you like, where some players are away, some players are there. So
yeah, and you see managers with full preseasons still not be able to implement. So
yeah, because you don't learn anything until the big games, and when the big games are like this, I mean, this is a horrific run they've got. As well as that, I mean, coming out of the World Cup, they'll have Manchester United at home, Man City away. They've got Liverpool at home. Even games against at Everton and at Aston Villa.
Yeah,
the new manager. West Ham are playing well despite the results. They are playing good football. They're a tough team to play. I mean, this is. I don't know how you get things going in this run. You maybe nick a couple of results here and there in this run, but it's
a miracle.
It's not, yeah, it's I'm really, really quite down on Wolves. Have been all season, to be fair, because I see it as a club that's not ascending, that they're descending,
Mm.
because I don't see how they're going to keep hold of Neves in the long term.
Yeah.
You know, he might not go in January, but I really couldn't see him there again next season, even if they do like have a little bit of a surge in the second half of the season, you know. And there's a lot of other players like that. Jose Sarr, you know,
Yeah.
he could get a bigger move. They've got a lot of like internationals in that team. And what drew them to Wolves in the first place, I'm not entirely sure. I mean, to be fair, they were a club that was on the outskirts of Europe a couple of years ago, but
Yeah, it was them and Leicester City really that couldn't push, but
yeah, but when you see how far they've fallen since then, you feel that it's a club that a lot of big players are going to leave rather than join now.
which is probably good in the sense they do need a revamp. That squad
Yeah,
is a bit samey same. They need a bit of a club identity, bit of directed football. I don't know if they have one actually, but that would be good for them in terms of
yeah. I ended up in a thread with a reading through this thread with a bunch of Wolves fans. I don't know how I ended up in it. I was just lost on the internet.
Friday
But
night Wolves.
yeah, I mean, there's worse places to be lost on the internet. But I mean, there was a lot of them really not happy with the way the club's being run in general. You know, it seems to be a club that doesn't really have a strategy at the moment. Was the sense I got from them. So I think it's worrying times there. And you know, if we are talking rebuild, which I'm kind of with you on that, I do think they need to kind of change their identity slightly from where they've been the last few years. Yeah, bringing in a new manager, untested in the Premier League. He's had an up and down sort of managerial career so far,
Yeah.
so it's difficult. They love hiring ex goalkeepers, don't they? Wolves.
Oh yeah,
Nuno was a
yeah.
goalkeeper. Lopetegui. You don't often see goalkeepers go into management. I just thought it was a bit bizarre
Yeah, that's a good pick actually.
that.
Let's do a quick roundup of the other matches. Let's start. This match was quite close to being in top four, I would say. Leeds
Yeah,
and Bournemouth, 4-3, a belter of a game. Bournemouth again, was it? Were they 2-0 up and they again dropped the ball?
yeah, they were definitely winning, and
Yeah.
it's it just felt like a Leeds Bournemouth game, really.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Bournemouth had that nice start and might nick a game, but I don't know. I love Leeds, and they seem to be at their best when their backs are against the wall. You know,
True.
when you like really start to doubt them, that's when they just turn up and just absolutely blitz teams. And I mean, the Liverpool game, was obviously a fantastic result for them, but this is just as important because this is a game you should win
Yeah.
at home to Bournemouth. No disrespect to Bournemouth, but you should win this.
Full respect.
And it would have brought them down after that Liverpool game, dropping points in this one. So they've sort of given themselves a bit more breathing room now.
Yeah. Good for
Important because
Marsh.
they were slipping into towards trouble.
True that. Next game, City Fulham. They made a bit of meal out of this. Casella got sent off. Was it 26th, 28th minute? Really
Yeah,
stupid challenge. He was never going to get the ball. There's no need for it in the penalty area too. And they gave them a
and
hill
look,
to climb.
yeah, and I'm not being funny. You play for Man City, like I know, like when you're last defender and the guy's through on goal, there is a temptation that like I've got to stop a goal here
Mm-hmm.
and I've got to do what I can. But it's Man City at the Etihad. You could probably go 3-0 down, and you're still probably going to nick a win. It's just,
Too much talent.
it's that's just how this team operates, But Man City are very, very fortunate in this one. I mean that penalty decision at the end, please. I just, if I was a Fulham fan, I'd be absolutely fuming. I'd be absolutely fuming at that because this is exactly one of those decisions that every club that's not in the top six, when they play a top six side, these decisions always seem to go against them.
Yeah.
And you do just wonder, like, they just, you work so hard for 94 minutes against this Manchester City team. You're so close to a great result, and then
Snatched.
yeah, and it was snatched, because that's about as soft a penalty as I've seen in a long time. That's the sort of penalty that VAR was really supposed to be, on top of. So
yeah, it's unfortunate. Fulham without Mitrovic as well performed quite well.
yeah, no, the thing I'll say about Fulham is they are frisky every week. Wherever they play, they found a way to compete against these bit better teams in the league. They gave Arsenal trouble at the Emirates. They got a point against Liverpool, and they're really doing well against the other teams in the league. They're dispatching some teams with ease. So I'm feeling good about Fulham.
Yeah, definitely not the Fulham of previous years.
Nah, definitely not.
Let's go to Nottingham Forest, Brentford, 2-2. Nottingham Forest, not really. Gibbs White looked quite good in this match, I would say. It was good to see. I don't think Lingard played, and it was Gibbs White. I think we mentioned last week. He was definitely more of a spark. And Brentford without Tony scored 2 goals.
Yeah, Brentford are just such an odd team. You just really struggle to work out exactly who they are. It feels like they're drawing 2-2 every week, whether it's a really good team they're playing, or the bottom end of the table they're playing. And they'll be really disappointed with this, because it's a last minute goal, and it's such a scrappy goal they concede. And
yeah,
I know in my predictions league I had 2-1 Brentford, so that hurt. 96th minute. That'd have been 3 points to me. Gone.
Come on, Brentford. Do better for me. Everton, Leicester. Leicester, another clean sheet. Was that 5 clean sheets in 6 weeks? A ridiculous defensive transformation. And obviously that man again, Maddison, 2 assists this game. I think out of all the English players, he's second highest, third highest to the goals and assists in the
I think if we're talking total goal contributions, yeah, maybe Harry Kane's only above him.
Yeah.
It's and it's a shame, because he's not going to make the World Cup, because I just don't see Southgate throwing him in when he's
never tried him.
He's not even brought him to the squad. A bit of team bonding, anything like that. So that's frustrating for England fans and for Leicester fans. I think there's a lot of Leicester fans that like to see Maddison in the England side. But it has been a hell of a transformation for them. From a team that pub teams could score a couple of goals against. They've suddenly tightened up. I think Brendan Rodgers alluded to just going back to basics a bit more with their structure, out of possession. It's working wonders for them, because this is the Leicester that we know, and the Leicester that I think most people outside of where is Leicester? East Midlands.
Yeah,
most people outside the East Midlands quite have a soft spot for Leicester. Obviously that miraculous Premier League win.
Yeah, the chairman.
And those years where they stuck around the top 4. I know that they never managed to quite finish it off in finishing in the top 4, but they've got some really good players there. They've punched above their weight for a long, long time, and it was tough to see them struggling the way they were for me.
Yeah, definitely. Like Vardy Party, all those good memories you have to see. You just want to see them do well. They probably would never have that enough to go in that, let's say, top 6 bracket, but they can be a competitive team. Kind of give a team like a bit like Fulham this season. They're always competitive. Can probably get a point against one of those bigger teams, and that's what I'm here for it. So I'm glad Rodgers has kind of turned the ship, because I didn't like kind of slander that was going his way. I knew he has got a lot of critics, because a lot of seasons he's had that, Liverpool, Celtic, where last season kind of falls away.
Yeah, he's always been a bit of a butt of people's jokes. He's always had that. I think it's because he doesn't come across as your typical kind of football man. He's not so boisterous on the touchline or anything. He's quite softly spoken, in his way, and quite serious the way he comes across as well. But Just a quick one on Everton. They've kind of slipped back down again. I was all over them, praising them, how great they were doing, and that seems to have been a bit of a death knell for them because they've really struggled since then. And it's mainly going forward, right, in the goals department.
Yeah, true. They don't really have much options. DCL doesn't seem the same player, but I guess
No.
he just come back. We'll see how that goes. But Southampton, Newcastle again, scoring more than 3 goals. They are on fire. Miggy's on fire. Southampton, Hasenhuttl, he's gone.
Yeah, finally. I liked Hasenhuttl, but there doesn't really seem to be that sign of the revival. Every other year, because they seem to go through these moments every year where you think this team is just done, right? I mean, there's no coming back from this, and then they seem to be really galvanized. And I do think he had a way of really getting those players on side. I think he could really get them working in the same direction at times, but how often do we speak about their inconsistency, right? I mean, that's always been, their Achilles heel, and they might need someone in there that's just gonna keep them upright, right, until the end of the season.
Yeah.
I don't think you go and get a guy that's got this big long-term vision.
No.
They're in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, the players they've been signing last few seasons, they have some kind of promise, but I feel like they do need a bit more experience in that team. It seemed quite like a
Yeah.
young team. That's where it probably all comes from, the inconsistency. I'm gonna miss Hasenhuttl. I like his type of football. I like the players he kind of brings in, but long term they can't just keep doing this. They're just gonna go
No.
slowly one place down, one place down.
I will miss that whenever Southampton got spanked, he honestly looked like just so physically defeated. You honestly felt bad for the guy sometimes watching him on the touchline. He just looked like he'd been let down.
West Ham, Crystal Palace, late goal by Olise, seal that. It wasn't really much in it. I know the XG says 1 to 0.2, but when I watched the match, I didn't feel that much difference. Maybe a few half more chances for Palace, and Olise was a big deflection, to be fair.
I think if you go and watch West Ham's games this season, every single game they've managed to make it fairly even contests, not much between the sides, and yet they keep finding ways to be on the wrong end of that. Because they were 1-0 up in this game, right?
Yeah.
For long periods. So it's 3 points lost. It's not just you've dropped a couple of points here. They've dropped all 3 of them, and yeah, because again, you look at the underlying stats. They're playing some good football. They're defensively, in terms of like the chances they're giving up, they've actually improved from last season. So it does seem that in going forward, the goals have kind of dried up.
Yeah,
quite significantly. We've talked about Bo and Antonio as well, which is really egregious because you've got Scamacca who's shown promise, but he's raw. He can't. You can't put the burden on him. I think it's way too soon for that. So yeah, they need to find goals from somewhere.
Yeah, they got a lot of flair players, a lot of players that kind of will go on a streak, but they don't seem to go a streak together. There's no consistency. It's probably something wrong. I gotta say something wrong with the system. I think because your players should be able to create chances. That's how your job as a manager, try and get your players in the right positions. Obviously,
Yeah.
some of the players should be doing better, like Bo and so forth, but they don't seem to be able to get that chance creation just by playing through the ball. It seems to be like a moment of quality, a dribble or a line breaking pass by Declan Rice. They're relying on players. It reminds me of the Man United teams of the counter attack on the like Mourinho kind of thing. Like we're not really relying on the system; we're relying on players, and that's why I think they are at the moment.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I don't think you can pin it all on personnel. At some point, you've got to look at, helping get these guys into better positions. Quick one on Palace. They seem to have got it going a bit.
Mm-hmm.
They've had some really good results of late, and I predicted a good season for Palace. Um, I think they had that horrific start to the season, certainly in terms of fixtures.
Yeah.
So it is good to see them getting these results. There have been some slightly uneven performances, and they seem to find themselves behind in games a little too often, probably for
Mm.
their liking. But they're picking up points, and they're not relying entirely on Wilfred Zaha, which has been a problem for them in the past.
Yeah, and then you can see in the table, they are sneaking up there.
Ooh, back
10th
in the
now.
top half, yeah.
Yeah, so what, 19 points? Not that far off.
Oh, so maybe, yeah. I mean, I think I had him in like 8th, so that's not bad. That is not
Well, yeah,
I mean,
technically.
Fulham's the one in the top half of that table. Fulham's the one that you really look at and go, well, because even with Brighton, to be fair, they've been trending
Mm-hmm.
upwards the last couple of years. You could see that coming. You could see Newcastle coming with the way they finished last season. But yeah, Fulham, they're doing well week in, week out, showing that they're not just a flash in the pan. That actually they're quite serious.
It's always good to see Brighton always underperforming. Expected points, they should be third with 24,
Yeah,
25, but
yeah, they're eternally underperforming in the goals department, and good to see the boys in red and white on the top
Mhm.
there.
Interesting to note Man United overperform. I guess it's the style of play. And
Yeah,
Liverpool are just about where they are.
yeah, it is weird with Liverpool. There is a lot of I think they're underperforming in the goals department quite significantly, especially when you watch their games.
Yeah.
Um, but the defense has been so bad. I don't think anyone anticipated them dropping off the way they have defensively.
And they're even overperforming that, I think. If you look at the XGA
Yeah, true,
+6.
true. Which, yeah, that says something.
Let's look at the bottom half of the table.
Yeah, I mean, Forest, it's starting to feel doomed. We're gonna have an early. I've just realised there's always that stat: the team that's bottom at Christmas, right?
Yeah.
I mean, this year's Christmas is coming a lot earlier. Christmas is coming next week, technically in Premier League terms.
Mm.
So it looks like they will be bottom at Christmas. I just haven't seen anything from them in these opening games that would suggest they can go on a run.
Yeah, it's very true. I just don't really see the door open for them.
No.
The only thing they could probably sneak past is because Bournemouth are not doing that well, only 3 points ahead. They kind of got some lucky results. Wolves and Southampton got new managers, so we don't know what's going to happen with them. And Everton, they've been heavily overperforming their XG against, look, +9,
Jesus.
So,
Yeah. I think Everton will be okay.
mhm.
It might not be too comfortable for them, but Bournemouth are definitely sort of trending in that downwards direction. Kind of a regression to the mean almost, because they were um, overperforming with their start to the season.
Yeah.
And I've spoken about Wolves. I really, really do worry about Wolves because it feels like they've got a lot to figure out and not a great deal of time to do that.
Yeah, it's interesting to know expected points, the last row. So
Yeah.
you have Bournemouth that actually are meant to be bottom, then Forest, then you got, am I seeing Everton? Everton meant to be at the bottom three.
Yeah.
Interesting. Then Southampton, Wolves, head and head, and Leicester City actually meant to be below them. Interesting.
I suspect that might have a lot to do with their
Long range
defense
and long range
and
goals.
and the fact, yeah, that they never really need to work the ball into the box. They'll just bang it in from 25. Do you see Tielemans' goal?
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
When you got
I just,
Tielemans, Madison, and
I
Dewsbury,
know,
what more
I
do you want?
know. It's unbelievable, man. They got some strikers of the football in that team.
It'd be good to see one day a team full of long range specialists, like have one strikers in the box and have 4 forwards who can just score from anywhere.
It would be interesting. I think you'd have to change the way you defend against them.
Yeah, you have to like push out.
Yeah, yeah, that that'd be new.
Football Manager quest. Anyway, guys, that was our weekend wrap.